In the year 2000, this company was worth around $70 billion. It was the seventh largest corporation in America. A magazine named it the most innovative company in the country, not once, but 6 years running. Its two bosses, a courtly Texan named Ken Lay and a McKinsey wonderboy named Jeff Skilling, were treated like rock stars, the smartest guys in any room they walked into. And its logo, a tilted crooked letter E, sat on a gleaming glass tower in Houston like a trophy. 15 months later, that company was gone. Bankrupt. 20,000 people lost their jobs, and many of them lost their life savings on the same day, because their retirement was tied up in its stock that fell from $90 to less than $1. The company was Enron. And if you ask what killed it, you'll get one word, shouted with total confidence: greed. Fraud. A few crooks in expensive suits. This is Flatline. Gloves on. Every week I haul one dead company onto the slab and tell you what actually stopped the heart. Not the tidy obituary, the real thing. Tonight we open up Enron. And I promise you, the killer is not the one the headlines named. First, understand what Enron actually was, because it did not start as a villain. It started as something deeply boring, a company that owned gas pipelines. Pipes in the ground, moving natural gas from A to B. Steady, dull, safe. Then Jeff Skilling arrived from the consulting world with an idea that would make Enron the darling of Wall Street. He decided Enron shouldn't just own the pipes, it should become a kind of stock market for energy itself. A trading floor where you could buy and sell gas, and then electricity, and then, eventually, almost anything. Internet bandwidth, advertising space, even the weather. Enron would be the exchange in the middle, taking a cut, owning as little as possible. It called itself an asset-light company, and Wall Street fell in love. Here was an old economy pipeline dinosaur that had reinvented itself as a sleek new economy machine. The stock soared. The tower gleamed. For a few years, Enron looked like the future of business itself. It was, everyone agreed, a genius operation. They were about to find out what kind. So how does the most innovative company in America vanish in 15 months? Ask most people, and you'll get that same one word: fraud. A gang of greedy executives cooked the books, got caught, and the house of cards fell down. And look, there was fraud, mountains of it, and people did go to prison. But that's the tidy version, the one that lets you file Enron under "some bad men were bad." It misses the actual disease. Because the fraud at Enron wasn't a few people sneaking around breaking the rules. The fraud was the business model. It was baked into how the company was allowed to count its own money. And to see it, you have to understand one boring-sounding accounting trick, the single most important thing in this entire story. The trick is called mark-to-market accounting. Normally, if you sign a 20-year deal to supply gas, you book the profit as it actually comes in, year by year, as real money lands in your account. Skilling got permission to do something very different. Under mark-to-market, the day Enron signed that 20-year deal, it was allowed to estimate all the profit it would ever make across the whole 2 decades, and book the entire amount immediately, as income, that quarter. Profit it had not earned. Profit that was, at best, a guess about the distant future. And who got to make the guess? Enron. So Enron could sign a deal, invent a rosy projection, and report a giant profit today for money it might never see. The most infamous example, a 20-year deal with Blockbuster to stream movies into your home. Enron booked around $110 million in profit on it. The technology barely worked, the partnership fell apart within months, and the profit stayed on the books. Do you see the trap? Once you've spent tomorrow's imaginary profit today, you have to find an even bigger tomorrow next quarter, just to stand still. Enron had strapped itself to a treadmill that only sped up, and it could never ever step off. And here's where it curdles into something darker. Because those glittering profits were fake. But the costs were real. Real cash bleeding out the door. So the losses and the debt had to go somewhere the shareholders couldn't see. Enter the chief financial officer Andy Fasto and his masterpiece, a web of secret side companies, partnerships with names borrowed from Star Wars like the Raptors, that Enron secretly controlled. Enron would quietly stuff its debts and failing assets into these shells, so its own balance sheet stayed beautiful and clean. It was hiding its garbage in the neighbor's bin, except Fasto owned the neighbor, and skimmed millions doing it. A Ponzi scheme in a very good suit. Meanwhile, the whole thing ran on a culture built to guarantee nobody stopped it. Skilling had installed a system employees called Rank and Yank. Every year, the lowest scoring 10 to 15% of the workforce were simply fired. So the message in every meeting was clear: hit your number, feed the machine, and never, ever, be the person who says this doesn't add up. And the outside accountants, Arthur Andersen, one of the most respected firms on earth, were paid tens of millions a year to check Enron's math. They signed off. Year after year, they signed off. The referee was on the payroll. So let's call the time of death. It didn't die of a single blow. It died the moment the music stopped. The moment Enron could no longer sign a bigger deal to paper over the last one. In August 2001, Jeff Skilling, the architect, abruptly resigned for personal reasons. That same month, an executive named Sharon Watkins wrote to Ken Lay warning that the company might, quote, implode in a wave of accounting scandals. She was right. In October, Enron admitted its numbers were wrong and erased over $1 billion in phantom value. The secret partnerships unwound. The regulators moved in. A rushed rescue merger with a rival, Dynegy, collapsed once they saw the real books. And Arthur Andersen, the referee, started frantically shredding documents by the ton. The stock that had touched $90 was now worth pennies. And on the 2nd of December, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy, the biggest in American history at the time. The 89-year-old accounting firm that vouched for it, Arthur Andersen, was convicted and destroyed right alongside it. 2 giants dead. 1 autopsy. Now for the finding. The line I'd actually write on the certificate. It does not say greed. Cross that out. Greed is the motive in half the deaths on this slab. It explains nothing on its own. What killed Enron is that it was allowed to spend tomorrow's imaginary profit today, and so it built a business that could only survive by inventing a bigger, better future every single quarter, forever, faster than reality could catch up. It didn't get caught committing fraud. Fraud was the product. The company confused reporting a profit with making one, and hired the referees to agree. When the future finally arrived and the money wasn't there, there was nothing underneath but a treadmill and a tower. So here's the scar to keep. Be very careful of any company whose profits are a story about the future, instead of a record of the past. When a business can decide today how much it earned from a deal that hasn't happened yet, it has stopped keeping score and started writing fiction. And fiction always needs a bigger sequel. And when the people paid to check the math are paid by the people doing the math, there is no math. We've got a whole ward of them now. Kodak clutched its film. Blockbuster clung to its late fees. Nokia married its keyboard. BlackBerry fell in love with being right. Toys R Us got bled dry by its owners. MySpace rented out its own crowd. Yahoo never decided what it was. Sears got handed to a mad scientist. WeWork was a landlord in a prophet's clothing. And Enron discovered that if you let a company grade its own future, it will give itself an A, right up until the day the future turns in its own paper, and it's blank. See you in the next autopsy.